Test 1, 2. So, I mean, it's pretty good.
It's louder when it's those mics for some reason than when it's the ones at the front of the room.
These are turned up too much, really.
Nice. All right, put it in the lower third that says video test in progress. Okay. So we need this time for you guys, we're going to play loud music close to the mic because what's been happening at the start of presentations is that the live stream's doing fine when we just do test, 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 but then as soon as like you get a bunch of people up there and the program starts and like it starts with that video, it like mutes the volume and then things kind of go haywire. So we're going to just try to play music.
So do you see this, Teresa?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Test, test. Yeah,
the computer's audio is run through the board too, and then back through here. So, yeah.
It sounds good. So I'm just gonna play some music now, and then while I do that, just yeah.
You want to play music from the computer?
I was just gonna hold up to the mic.
Because when they play music, they don't.
Yeah, because then what we've been having happen, I guess they're not going to, but still just to be on the safe side, like, as the sound, like, gets, as soon as there's, like, too much input, it kind of goes haywire, so I just want to make sure it can handle, like, continuous sound.
Okay. Just a little like a vent.
It's low, but...
Alright. I'm going to keep it low.
I mean, you hear it on the left and fine.
Okay, not to jinx us. Ladies and gentlemen,
Don't say anything. Do not say anything.
we may have our first public live stream on our hands.
Really use two of these for these? Just for questions,
For
right?
questions, but yeah,
That's
because it's a small room. Thank you so much. Okay, so Truth, I'm going to use the second computer for the close-up. So,
do the close-ups on this camera, so that way I'm standing right next to you. Well, I guess I'm gonna try to squeeze a chair in here so I don't have to stand for the thing. What'd you say?
Yeah, we've got a number of people already on too.
Cool. How did it hear it? No, because this camera, we're not using the audio from this camera.
Well, either that or you're.
Use that one. Let me remove this just in case. Audio check, A, B, C, D. Test, test, test. Audio check, A, B, C, D. Test, test, test.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Good morning. My name is Christine Souders. I'm the Associate Dean for Admissions and Financial Aid here at the Journalism School. I'm delighted to see so many of you early on Saturday morning. We thank you for coming out. We are going to be talking about our Master of Science, our Master of Arts programs. We'll also be talking about our dual degree program with computer science and journalism. We'll also be touching on our doctoral program. So I'd like to welcome all of you who are here in the room, as well as everybody who is listening to the live stream of this program today as well. We're delighted that you're all here with us. I would like to begin by introducing Nick Lemon, our dean, who is going to talk with you just generally about the school. We'll move then to our faculty panel, student panel. There will be plenty of time for you to ask questions. We'll be taking questions at the end of each segment. We'll also be very happy to take questions from those of you who are listening via live stream. You can submit your questions via the chat, and we'll be glad to answer them for you. And if, as people ask questions, if I could ask those of you in the audience, we have a number of microphones that we'll bring around to you so that everybody can hear your questions as you ask them. So again, welcome. Nick.
Thanks, Christine, and welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. As Christine mentioned, I'm Nick Lemon. I'm the dean of this school. So let me just give you a very quick introduction before we get into details. Columbia Journalism School is 100 years old this year. We're celebrating our centennial. And this is a good room to introduce you to the school in. Our founder, if you see a bus back there, that's Joseph Pulitzer, who founded the school. He came to this country during the Civil War as a mercenary soldier, a teenage boy from Hungary with no money, no nothing. And he was a classic American success story. And first in St. Louis, then in New York, where he bought a moribund daily paper called the New York World and built it up into a huge commercial success, the most commercially successful journalism property the world had ever seen up to that time. This room we're in is called the Joseph Pulitzer World Room and has various things from the offices of the New York World, which no longer exists, except here, which I'll get to in a minute. So this grand stained glass window stood in the editorial rooms of the New York World, and the top editors sat in these chairs, and we have various other things throughout the building from the New York World offices. Pulitzer was a journalistic, business, and promotional genius, and he knew that his audience was immigrants. At that time, the U.S. had no immigration restrictions. Immigrants were pouring into New York City. The other publishers couldn't see that these folks who were, had no money, no education, no nothing, were an audience audience for great journalism, but Pulitzer got that, which is something that's an important lesson of his career. When the French government gave the Statue of Liberty to the United States, Pulitzer got the idea that he would give the base of the Statue of Liberty for the statue to stand on, which he did, and this enabled him to turn the Statue of Liberty into his personal branding device and logo. So that's why there's the Statue of Liberty here. So his audience would essentially steam into the country, land at Ellis Island, see the Statue of Liberty, and be sutured to the New York world from the minute they arrived. We also see from the story of the New York world that everything constantly changes in journalism and is changing now. So the New York world was a hugely profitable property when Pulitzer started this school in 1903, and 30 years later it was out of business. That's journalism. Nothing's. It's always here. It's always changing in response to technological, sociological, and other realities, and we keep changing with it. So the founding of this school was announced in 1903 when Pulitzer made a gift to establish the school and the Pulitzer Prizes, which are judged right here in this room also. Pulitzer died in 1911. The school opened in 1912, and we've been going for 100 years. We had a head start on most other journalism schools, which gives us, very deep roots and an unusual position. We're also unusual because we're one of a very few number of journalism schools that focus only on professional graduate education for journalists, with the exception of a small academic PhD program. There's a lot of programs in the country. We're the only one at an Ivy League school. We're the only one, we're one of 3 in the country that does only journalism, not public relations, marketing, advertising, only at the graduate level. And this gives us a real focus. The people who are faculty here, for the most part, are journalists. The people you'll hear from: Betsy's a journalist, Alexander Steele is a journalist, I'm a journalist, Bill's a journalist, Ernest is a journalist of many years standing. And this is really a community of working journalists who teach and who have deep ties to the profession and a passion about the profession here in New York and all over the world. So it's a great place to learn the rapidly changing skill sets associated with journalism employment. It's a great place to hear the conversation about the future and present of journalism, because there's an event here, at least one event every day while while school is in session, and usually 3 or 4. And it's a good place to launch you into the employment market, because we have a big, well-built network that helps get you there. So that's a quick overview of us and who we are. And now I'll turn things over to Alexander Stila, who's going to talk mostly about one of our programs, the Master of Arts program. And he has to go, which is why he goes first. And then the rest of us will populate this panel and talk some more generally about our academic program. So take it away.
Thanks. Sorry that I have to go, but I apologize for that. But anyone who wants to follow up with questions, you'll find me in the faculty page of the Journalism School website, and you're welcome to email me and contact me that way. As Dean Lemon explained, I'm here particularly to talk about the Master of Arts program, but I'll do so by also talking about the MS program, which probably the majority of you will apply to. There are 2 main programs, and you may be wondering which one is more suitable to you, so I'll try to distinguish the 2 to help you with that decision. I myself graduated from the MS program back in another millennium, and I also teach in the MS program, so I'm familiar with both. I think a simple way to distinguish them is that the MS program is really designed to make sure that everyone coming out of that program has a complete package of the skills that he or she will need to function effectively as a journalist in the world today. So it has a very heavy emphasis, and has always had a heavy emphasis on skills training. Those skills, of course, have changed because digital skills didn't exist when I did the program, and it was all based around reporting and writing. One, where you reported and wrote your brains out, and you still will do that, but also within the context of a world where an enormous amount of journalism is produced digitally. So the heavy emphasis is on skills. And the MA program, which Dean Lemon founded now about 8 years ago, has a different emphasis. It was conceived to be an optional second year for people who had done the MS program, but it's ended up serving a somewhat different population, journalists who have significant experience out in the world reporting, who feel that they don't need the basic package of reporting and writing and skills-based work that they will get through the MS program. They may be been working for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We've had people with 15 years experience in some cases. We have occasionally very, very accomplished people in their early 20s who have just they focused on journalism in college, did a huge amount and have already amassed a body of work that we feel would sort of make doing RW1 unnecessary for them and suit them for the MA program. But it's divided into 4 concentrations. You pick an area of concentration, which can be arts and culture, science and technology, business and economics, or politics. I happen to teach the politics program, which I also help to design. And it's much more academic in nature than the MS program. It involves much more reading than the MS program does. Part of the thinking behind the program was to take advantage of the fact that this journalism school happens to be on the campus of a major research institution, major research university. And so it tries to tap into, I think for a long time, journalism had a certain attitude of self-sufficiency where you could say, well, I know how to cover politics and I've got good sources and I can do that without, let's say, the help of eggheads over in the political science department. This program starts with a different attitude, which is that there's a lot of interesting work being done in the research university, which journalists can tap into quite effectively if you're looking to establish a brand, so to speak, an area of specialization. This can be a very good program. The people in business, for example, do corporate accounting and finance over in the business school so that they can interrogate a balance sheet and make intelligent decisions about how a company or an entity is doing rather than relying on the people at that company to tell them how it's doing. The people in politics get a kind of conceptual and historical background and learn ways of thinking about social and political problems that I think are quite different from what most political journalists would get. And I think that can be very effective in terms of, in a moment in which it's no longer sufficient today to, in a kind of webified world, to simply say what happened, because what happened is all over the web practically instantly. Being able to provide an intelligent analytical frame around what happened is often the value added that both newspapers and news websites are looking for. The science people, visit a genetics lab and learn how, nuclear microscopes work and genetic analysis is done. They learn about statistics in a course that Dean Lemon teaches, evidence and inference. And they also take 3 graduate level courses in other departments of the university in their area of specialization. So if you have something you really want to do, we had a student a few years ago who wanted to do Middle Eastern politics. She came in, fortunately, with some Arabic, which was obviously really helpful, focused on Middle Eastern studies, and she's now covering, she's the Cairo bureau chief for the Washington Post. That's an unusually good job, so I don't want to give you too many illusions. She was on a good road when she came here, but generally I find if we get very good people, we hopefully don't hurt them, we help them, and they can go on to do good things. of course, all of you do a master's project, which you do both in the MS program as well as in the MA. In the MA, it will be somewhat longer and more complicated. It's a chance to stretch your legs as a writer and a journalist. It is a platform-neutral project, which means that if you're digitally minded and you can do it digitally, you're welcome to. Most of them are done in print form, but those who have a broadcast background are able to undertake a broadcast master's can do that. So that gives you, I think, a kind of general idea of the two kinds of paths you can follow. And Dean Lemon, who also teaches, and as I said, was the founding spirit of the program, will also be here to answer questions about that. And as I said, I'm very happy to follow up with any of you in the coming weeks as you figure out what you want to do. So thanks and good luck.
Thanks very much, Sandro. I'm going to invite our other faculty members who are here to come up and join us.
Is my name here?
Yes.
What's my name?
Also, I'm writing my email address up there, lemon@columbia.edu. If anybody wants to write me or meet with me individually to ask questions about the school, don't hesitate. I'm available. I'm flying to California tomorrow for the coming week to do recruiting events like this out there. But I'll be back the week after that, and I'll be on email this coming week. So.
Great, and now I'd like to introduce a number of people to you, and they're going to talk with you about all of our programs. Immediately to my right is our Dean of Academic Affairs, Bill Gruskin. To his right is Elena Cabral, who is the head of our part-time program. And immediately to her right is Betsy West, who works as a member of our broadcast faculty, and then of course Dean Lemon. And just so that we have a little bit of an idea of your interests, can you, for those of you who are interested in the full-time MS program, could you raise your hands? And how about the part-time program? And how about the MA program? And do I have any people here who are interested in the dual degree program with computer science and journalism? Yes, okay, great. And also, are there any people, prospective doctoral applicants here? Great, okay. So I'm gonna give this over to the faculty, and we will also do a short question and answer period with them when they finish speaking.
Should I start? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. There we go. We're getting people roused up here. I just came out of spin class, so I'm feeling really good. Next time we do this, we're going to put up spin cycles all around. So anyway, well, it's really good to have you here, especially on such a gray, ugly morning. I'm the Dean of Academic Affairs. I'm also a professor here, so I teach as well as deanify. In fact, all the deans here teach, and this is the culture of Columbia University. The president of the university, Lee Bollinger, teaches because we feel it's important for administrators to be in the classroom, seeing what students are up to. And I had the opportunity this fall to teach a new class, but it's a class that's going to be delivered to all the MS students next year. And it reflects some of the changes that we made in the curriculum. And I'm going to briefly explain them now. I also am happy to respond by email or anything like that. I'm bgruskin@columbia.edu, so no space or anything. You can find me on the website. Last year, the faculty voted 34-0, and it's hard to get 34 people to agree on anything, but we voted 34-0 to change the MS curriculum. And we did it because we felt that as valuable and as strong as our program has been over the years and as successful as we've been in placing young journalists or middle-aged journalists into great jobs all over the world, we felt we needed to make some changes in it to make sure it reflects the real world as it's changing out there. The way it's historically worked, at least for the last several decades, is when you applied as an MS student, you would actually check off a box called broadcast, digital, newspaper, or the magazine box. And that box would sort of channel you into a certain RW1 course. RW1 is the fall class in the reporting and the writing. And it would also have a lot to say about what classes you would take in the spring, because there are a number of classes that are very platform specific. But the boxes also tended to reflect the way the industry used to work, which is that if you worked at CBS News, you didn't have to write too much. If you worked at the Miami Herald, the paper I used to work at, you actually weren't allowed to shoot a photograph. And if the photo department caught you shooting photographs, they wouldn't use them. Those days are really over, and we've seen that from our own students. Students who went to go work at ABC News are doing live blogging. Students who go off and work at newspapers are expected to shoot either still or moving pictures. And there are a lot of jobs that just didn't exist. Michael Keller, a student who graduated here a little over a year ago, then worked at the New York World, which is our in-house website, something we can talk about later, is now leading the data efforts at the Daily Beast. Data jobs didn't really exist in newsrooms 3 or 4 years ago, but now students who have the skills to be able to interpret and visualize data are highly thought of in the job market and get to do really interesting and expansive things. So the way your year would work if you're a full-time student, and it's pretty similar to part-time, but part-time, of course, is spread out over 2 years, is you would come here in early August, you would go through our boot camp, and I don't know how many of you have ever lived in New York City during August, but it's really a delightful time of the year here. And you'll take some intensive digital skills in photo and audio, and we will actually also give you this year, which is new, a week of stats and data, because we do feel that any journalist going into the field these days needs to have a basic understanding of data and statistics. You will also start meeting with your 16 cohorts in a reporting class, and this is an intensive class that will kick into full gear on the day after Labor Day. And for 7 weeks, you'll be doing almost nothing but this class, and this is the class that I taught this past fall. You will learn how to interview people. You'll learn how to gather and authenticate information. You will write a lot. You will be writing drills that'll be in the comfort of one of the labs upstairs that nobody will ever see. But you will also be writing stories that will most likely be published on websites that are open to the public and that we actively push out. And we did that because we wanted to really focus your initial time here on the reporting methods. It's critical. It's always been part of the DNA of the school that we expect you not to spend that much time here in the building. We want you in the neighborhoods of New York City, and sometimes even well outside of New York City, because this is an amazing place to do real journalism. And there are many, many uncovered stories and uncovered neighborhoods in the city that deserve your attention, where you'll find rich and textured stories to pursue. when that 7-week period is over, you'll have a week to be thinking about and really planning the master's project. The master's project in its classic form is a written story of around 5,000 to 6,000 words, which you will not turn in until the end of March. So you'll start really thinking about it in September, and you'll get a full week to really kind of plan it out in October. You'll be working one-on-one with one of our advisors. Many of us, all of us do master's advising. We also hire people from the outside at large news organizations to help out too. But you'll get that week to kind of really think through what's my story going to be about and how am I going to pursue it. You'll then go into 2 module classes. One will be a writing class, and you will get some choice here. It could be profile writing, it could be deadline writing, it could be long-form feature writing. And that'll meet 2 days a week, or it'll occupy a couple days a week. And you'll probably take a class in a module called Image and Sound. So if video is something you want to be doing, or photo, or audio, or data visualization, that's where you'll start heading off to. And that'll really take up the rest of your first semester. You then go into the winter break. The winter break is a nice long 5-week period during which you get to sleep for about a week, and then you start working on your master's project. You'll be doing a lot of your interviewing and the research work on your master's project, because the first draft is due on the first day of the spring semester. Also in spring semester, you'll go into your fuller classes, your 15-week classes that span the gamut from classes like Alessandro Stile's teaching the journalism of ideas. That's an MS class. Betsy West, to my right, teaches a video storytelling class. So there are classes that help you take the skills that you've gotten in the fall semester and hone them in a more focused and deeper way in the spring semester. You also complete your master's project, and finally you also take a class in a broad category that we call audience and engagement. And I'll just talk for a minute about this, and I want to pass it on to my colleagues here. It's increasingly important that you as a journalist understand whom you're writing or producing for and how those people get to your journalism. The old days of simply typing up the story, hitting send, having some editor plunk it into the newspaper or put it on the 11 p.m. newscast, and you sort of go off on your way. Those days are pretty much over. You have a real individual responsibility to ensure that your stories get the broadest possible audience, and that you understand that audience and how to engage them in really thoughtful ways. And we've been doing this in bits and pieces at the journalism school, but the more we talk to employers, the more we talk to the people who really understand what's going on in the media, the more we felt that we needed to offer a specific class in this. It'll be a class that will help you understand kind of basic data about your audience. You know, there's a lot of talk about how many users your website gets, how many page views, but you'll also learn, it'll get more specific in things like aggregation, social media, and you can kind of gear your interest to those specific things. But we feel it's increasingly important that you understand your audience and that you understand the kind of broad spectrum of people out there, both as a tool to actually do journalism and as a tool to distribute it. It will not diminish from all the great reporting and writing and shooting that we expect you to do here, but we think it'll help enhance it, and we have become convinced in talking with employers that this is something that they increasingly expect their young journalists to be able to do. So that's my quick synopsis of it. I'm going to take a deep breath and turn over to Elena Cabral.
Hi, welcome everybody. Can I just ask very quickly how many of you are interested in the part-time program? That's great. We're really happy to have you. I'm a graduate of the part-time program myself. I graduated in 1999, and then I went to work for the Miami Herald. Yesterday, we were having a great conversation about how our students this year did an amazing job covering Hurricane Sandy and the presidential election. And it occurred to me that when I first started my career right out of journalism school at the Miami Herald, I covered a number of hurricanes and another presidential election in which the state of Florida struggled to figure out its choice for president. And so I feel that my career has come full circle now in helping our students report in so many more exciting ways, big stories like this, and putting these stories online and building their portfolio as they go along. I've taught a number of classes here, and as you know, I now run the part-time program. I also advise our students in the National Association of Hispanic Journalists chapter, just one of several affinity groups here who do fantastic events and professional development activities here as alongside their courses. I'm also an advisor in the Office of Career Services, which is comprised of a team of journalists who help students put together their resumes and cover letters and really be very smart about their job searches. You know, like so many of you, I look to this place after having graduated and worked for a few years, and came to a point in my life where I knew that I had this passion and talent for storytelling, but I had not yet really pushed that potential anywhere special, and I desperately wanted to be inspired and challenged and really guided. And I think everyone comes to that point in their careers, in their working lives, when it's really time to do something bold. And if there's any place, to do that, this really is a fantastic place to start. This is the kind of place that really carefully cultivates journalists. From the professors to the career counselors, you really feel inspired and challenged in ways that you really never imagined possible. And that guidance doesn't end when you graduate. You realize pretty early on that you've become part of this professional family that stays with you and lasts throughout your working life. And of course, especially for part-timers, I think this is a fantastic time to be applying to the school. The changes in our curriculum truly, as Dean Gruskin has said, reflect changes in our industry. And this fluidity between platforms means that you don't have to make this choice between broadcast and print. You can more easily craft a program that aligns with your professional goals and makes you, I believe, much more marketable in the workplace. Now, as you know, the part-time program is spread out across 2 years, but it is very much the same degree that the full-timers earn. And, students take classes together with the full-timers. But for me, I could say that, the part-time program really runs at a pace that was ideal for me. It gave me a chance to gain some momentum and, also a chance to be a little more selective in my course selections. And, it gave me this wonderful status after having graduated from, undergraduate from a college and worked for a while, of student status with all of the rights and privileges that come along with that. And it was, just a wonderful experience to have. I would be happy to speak to you later or in a one-on-one setting about how this curriculum would look for you as a part-timer. I can say that it starts first with this reporting class, the one that Dean Gruskin just described, but over the summer, which is a great time to be in this building and, to have access to the equipment and the computers and to all of us in career services and the deans and the professors to a certain extent, to yourself. So I look forward to hearing from you and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy West, and for the past 6 years, I've been a professor here after a long career in the business formerly known as broadcast news. I worked for ABC News for many years and for CBS News. I was actually thinking I had my own little full circle story because about 25 years ago I was a producer for ABC News, and I was in Mobile, Alabama, in a motel a little bit too close to the water as we were waiting for Hurricane Frederick, and at a certain point the correspondent and I decided that our best bet was to go inside the bathroom of the motel room and just kind of hang out next to the toilet a little bit because it seemed to be the most stable place until the hurricane passed. Cut to 25 years later, and I was in my apartment close by here, and I spent the entire day, I will admit, in my pajamas, at my computer the day after the hurricane with all of my students in my reporting class out covering the aftermath of this amazing event. And we didn't have, there was no newsroom. It was a virtual newsroom, and everybody was uploading their pictures and their stories, and we were coordinating with Google Docs, and it was really exciting and fun, and a kind of reflection of what's happened in the past 25 years and how stories are covered and how the students here can get involved. So I teach in the fall reporting class, basic video class, and then as Bill said, in the spring I teach an advanced video storytelling class, which is open to the part-time students, so I often have part-time students in that class. It is a very, it is a boot camp. It's very collaborative. It's intense. I think one of the things that's happened in the business is that as some of the middle management has been shrunk, young journalists are thrown into situations where they are expected to perform at a very high level very quickly. I mean, when I was starting up in the business, the previous millennium, it was more of an apprenticeship system. You had more time to kind of learn what was happening, and the older reporters and producers and the editors were kind of training you. I think that's less the case now, which is why I think that the experience that you have here is so important, because you have an opportunity to work with very experienced journalists and who will go over your copy again and again and again, and help you learn how to do it yourself, to internalize that and become your own self-editor. And I think that's why our graduates are very appealing to employers now, because they see that they've been vetted. You know, they've been through the system, and I think that's really important. You know, I recently took a leave of absence to do a documentary about the women's movement, which is airing on PBS in February. I tell you this not to plug my project, but just to say that in the course of time that I've been here, these past 6 or 7 years, the business has changed so much, and my documentary is preceded by a full year by an online video project with short video stories of over 100 women, groundbreaking women who were involved in the women's movement or were beneficiaries of the women's movement. People are envisioning content, if you will, in a very different way, and everything is being thrown up for grabs now, and people are telling stories in different ways. The fundamentals don't change. The fundamentals of how to find and report and tell a story in a compelling way, they haven't changed, but many of the platforms and the distribution, a lot of that is changing. And what's been really fun for me being here is to be a part of that, and to be a part of a conversation where we're thinking about that, and also to have an opportunity to pass on some of my skills to my students. So if you have questions, ask me later on.
Let me just add a few words, because I already got to speak, and then we'll go to Q&A. So I want to say a few things to give you a general picture of the digital side of the school. When I came here as dean 10 years ago, we didn't even use the word digital. We used the word new media, and it was after the first internet bubble had burst, and I think there were 3 students in the school who were new media concentrators. So the story has changed a lot. It continues to change a lot, and one thing we try to do is be nimble and keep changing with it, because it's not at all clear what the digital journalism world will look like in 20 years. But we're uniquely well positioned to ride the wave wherever it takes us. You may have seen in the little shuffle that was up there, we published a report. Let me see, I think it's the next thing.
Actually, here. I'll go back to it.
Yes. So this, in the last, since 2009, we've published 3 roughly 25,000 word reports about some aspect or another of digital journalism, trying to sort of make sense of it all. Bill did the last one, and this one is done by Emily Bell of our faculty with 2 colleagues from other universities. This is under the heading of the school trying to be a sort of convener of the conversation. But also, as we do these reports, it informs us in changing our curriculum. In the last 5 years, just to tick off the headlines, first, if on our homepage there's a thing at the bottom that says student work online, and if you go to that,
I can see what my job is today.
where is it? It's down further.
Yeah, here we go.
Right there.
Yep.
So, and we now operate about 40 websites a year made up of student work. We, 10 years ago, maybe 1 or 2. Most classes that do journalism have their own websites, and we recently, as Bill mentioned, started a year-round website primarily staffed by recent graduates called The New York World after Mr. Pulitzer's paper. So we do a lot of journalistic production, taking advantage of how easy it is to publish in the era of digital journalism. Several years ago, we started the Tao Center for Digital Journalism and hired Emily Bell from The Guardian in London to come and direct it. That's a kind of umbrella for everything we do in our curriculum digitally and for a bunch of research activities like this report that you saw in conferencing and so on. Then, thanks to another gift, we've just started something called the Brown Institute for Media Innovation. The director of that is a guy named Mark Hansen, who just joined our faculty, and it's a partnership with the Stanford Engineering School. The Brown Institute sits mostly in the postgraduate level. It awards fellowships and grants to people coming out of school, and these are for essentially making things. As Mark puts it, he wants to change journalists from tool users. Many journalism schools, including us, offer instruction in how to use, Final Cut Pro, or how to, learn all the features of Facebook that most people don't know about, to being tool makers. That is, people who can actually write code and create new forms of journalism by marrying those skills with traditional journalistic skills. Mark, this spring, is teaching a course where instead of writing stories, you write algorithms. So we're pushing into that area. And we're just about, if you all come here, when you're here, one little part of the school is going to be a construction site, because under us and then over to that side, we're building the home of the Brown Institute and the Tao Center. So we're continuing to push quite aggressively forward into that realm of journalism, while also doing all the things in the other realms, print and broadcast, that we've always done, and being nimble about combining them. I'll stop here, and maybe you all have questions for the rest of this session to any of us that we can talk back and forth about.
Hold on for one quick second. I'm going to give you a microphone.
We're filming and streaming this, so
Okay.
you're performing for a worldwide audience.
Okay, now I'm really nervous. I was wondering if you could all expand on, in your experience working with students, how do you see students change over the course of their time here, and what types of students are really poised to benefit the most from going to graduate school here?
You know, students come in with a variety of skills. I'm always amazed at the beginning when you get the class, and there's some people who already have experience. They're incredible photographers. There's some people who are very strong writers. And I think what happens often at the beginning is that students wind up working together and sort of supplementing their own skills, collaborating a bit at the beginning, and then deciding, you know, at the end of the first term, well, okay, what am I going to specialize in here? You know, what is it that where I really want to make my mark? Because I don't think that the school's mission is that you're going to do every single thing. We're offering a lot of different opportunities in the way the new curriculum is formulated for you to decide, okay, you know, I thought that I was coming in here to become a producer of documentaries, but I have fallen in love with radio. And so, and we have a lot of professors here who are NPR veterans, and I want to take that workshop in the spring, and I'm going to become a radio reporter. We certainly have a lot. I mean, I love listening to NPR now because I hear so many of my students, which is very, very, even though I'm not a radio professor, but many of them who've come through my classes who've wound up doing that, or others who've fallen in love with documentaries or print, photography. So I think it's a process of exploration. You never really know what you're going to wind up doing.
Let me just add a word to that, a couple words. When I was a kid, my dad, who loves mathematics, gave me a book called Flatland by E.A. Abbott, which I'm sure nobody's ever heard of, but it's highly recommended. And it's a kind of fantasy about living in a two-dimensional world and what things look like and what you see and what you don't see. The alternate to us really is the kind of apprenticeship workplace system that Betsy talked about that many of us came up in. And I think of that as sort of flatland in the sense that you can get a very rich experience inside an institution if you're lucky, and learn about that institutions and its norms and so on. Being here is like adding the third dimension for a lot of people, because what you can't do in any news organization is say, I want to go anywhere in journalism. I want to be able to go anywhere. I don't want to be just inside the skill set and experience set and ambit of the institution where I happen to be working right now. I want to go up in the observation tower, see the whole landscape, figure out where I want to land, go there, and build my skills there. And that's what we, even though we're a small and quite intimate institution, can offer you that's really extraordinary. When I welcome the incoming class every year, I do this little game where I say, returning to the mathematical theme, this is an illustration of natural distributions. I say, how many people have never done any journalism at all? And we're open to those people, you know. Just woke up one morning, you said, I just hate being a brain surgeon, I want to be a journalist. I mean, we do actually get people like that, believe it or not. And you know, there's 250 people in the room and 5 hands go up. Those are the people who've never put their hands on a keyboard and written a story ever. And then I say, how many people here have been on salary at a news organization for 3 years or more before they came here? And again, 3 or 4 people's hands go up. So that's a big middle of the curve. Story after story after story is, you know, I worked for a college paper, I've freelanced for an alt weekly, I blog, I've gotten some pieces here and there. I've got a job in a news organization that I don't really like, and I'd like to move up a level. I've got a job in a news organization that isn't really frontline reporting and editing, and I'd like to move up a level. This is a way, this school institutionally is a way for people who have done journalism to sort of lock it down and get themselves on a path right into, we hope, full-time employment where you want to be in the job market. We do that transition for people.
I just want to add something. By the way, that was a very good question. And officials always say that's a good question when they really mean that I don't want to answer the question, but that was a really good question.
In fact, it's now escalated and they say, great question.
Great question.
That means they really don't want to answer.
Great question. I got to go. The other thing about this school, and it may not be reflected so much in this room right now, but if you're admitted here and enroll come August, you will see it. It has become a very international school. I think we're up to about 39% of the student body is from outside the U.S., close to 40. And the class I taught this past fall, I had them covering state senate and congressional races in Queens and Brooklyn. Queens, for those of you who may or may not know, I think the public school system in Queens deals with about 120 languages. So I took a poll of my students at the beginning because it was important to know where to assign people what they spoke. 17 students, they spoke 18 languages. So when there was something going on in the Korean precincts, we had it covered. When it was going on in the Chinese precincts, we had it covered. Even Greek. I had 2 students who spoke Greek for some reason. And it really provides a tremendous amount of texture to this school that I think maybe you didn't see here 10 or 15 years ago. People come from so many different backgrounds, and they bring those experiences and those skills, somewhat linguistic, but also cultural, to what they cover. And they're doing it in the city that's the most diverse cultural city, certainly in America, maybe anywhere in the world. The only other thing I just want to say real quickly is we talked a lot about digital. We talked a lot about video and audio. If you want to write, this is the written word. We actually have a whole module devoted to it, and you'll take one of those classes if you're here, if you're in the MS program. Writing is still at the core of what we do. It's very hard to be a great digital or broadcast journalist if you don't know how to write and express yourself clearly. Furthermore, there's still a tremendous market in written journalism. A lot of it's still in print, a lot of it's on iPads or on other devices. But we feel firmly that you cannot leave here unless you can write clearly, concisely, and with some narrative style. And if that's what you really want to do, and that's really the focus of your career, and we welcome that because all of us have writing background here, we will help you do that here.
And I would just add that this process of exploration and self-discovery that Betsy talked about is not just across media. And in other words, it's really not necessarily just finding out that you're great in radio or that you could go into video. We also have a really broad curriculum that allows you to specialize in particular subject areas, such as education writing, business reporting, science reporting, health reporting, and these are wonderful specializations that I think, as a career counselor, are incredibly important to have in your tool set. To be able to, you will graduate with the ability to write about anything, but it's really a wonderful opportunity to get some fantastic first-rate reporters who have had a lot of experience in these fields, sort of helping you to understand them and to report in these areas. And when you have fantastic opportunities like the Kaiser Reporting Fellowship, which places students in newspapers and news agencies across the United States to do just health reporting, you realize how, useful this curriculum is.
I was going to ask, is there anyone who's interested in the doc program? Just a couple, yeah, I mean, just a brief word on that. That we offer a third semester documentary program. So you are part of the doc program at the beginning. You meet in the fall. You have a special seminar in the spring in which you start learning about the different genre of documentaries and also developing your own project. And then in the summer or possibly in the following fall, it's kind of optional. You have a very intense, basically 3-month experience working generally with one partner on a documentary, one-on-one with an advisor. And I've seen some wonderful work come out of this that's, been shown on television stations and PBS and won awards and festivals. And, I think it's a very interesting option for people who want to do documentary.
We're going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to move on to our student panel. Why don't we start in the back there?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for sharing today. I'm from China's Taiji Media, and I'm now a correspondent here. I actually have a question about the MA program, and it's a general question that what do you think an experienced reporter can get from the MA program, and what do they do after this program? Thank you.
So let me field that. On the second part, when we started the program, we had in mind a very simple answer to your second question, which is, you go in a general assignment reporter and you leave a beat reporter. And that still can be true if you are a general assignment reporter. But I'd say a couple other things about it. First of all, in these years that the program's been running, one of the clear findings in journalism is the big growth area in employment is business and financial journalism. So, in particular, that one of the 4 majors is sort of funnels people into that sector of journalism. Now, this may not be true of any of you, but the sad truth is journalism doesn't always attract the most practical-minded people who are making rational decisions about a secure living. So our arts concentration actually gets the most applicants in the MA program more than the business concentration, even though the business is where the jobs more surely are. What that speaks to is, some people just want to raise the level of their game. Some people want to jump shift their career. They feel a little stuck. Quite a few. We're now up to, I think, 3 books published by MA grads just in the first few years of the program. A couple of others have done documentary films. In other words, people want to sort of move to that kind of work. Here's what the sort of big idea of the program is. The tradition at journalism schools is, as Elena said, we all teach courses that are themed to delivery systems and formats, you know, profile writing, documentary, etc. And we all teach courses that are on coverage areas as well. The old mantra used to be, if you want to get past a certain point on subject expertise, you just should go to another part of the university and take courses there, whether it's School of Public Affairs, business school, whatever. And what we've really tried to do in this program is import that ethic here into the school. And you go out and take some courses, but the construct is more bringing the mountain to Mohammed, if you will. And why do we do that? One, and very important, it's then you're always making the move of applying the expertise into journalism. So if you go take courses at SEPA, you're going to write term papers. If you're going to take a similar course here, you're going to get to the same level of true expertise, but then map it onto a story immediately. So that's very powerful. It's not like you have to figure out the journalism connection by yourself. We help you figure it out. Second, you can select the parts of various academic fields of expertise that are most useful to journalism. So we, rightly or wrongly, have decided in the business concentration we're not going to do depreciation schedules. I'm told it's very, very important in business itself, but it's not that important in business journalism. So we can sort of pick and choose the parts of the business realm or whatever realm you're going to end up writing the most stories about. And finally, it's a cultural change in the school to say to faculty who then pass on to students, you've got to own what's going on in expert discourse in the subject you cover. You have to know who the major people are. I'm a lifelong political reporter. You walk into the press room at the convention, the Democratic National Convention, with thousands of people there, and say, guys, name 5 working political scientists in the United States. Not going to happen. But, you know, if you read the wonderful column Tom Edsel, Alexander Steele's partner in MA Politics, has been writing in the New York Times, you see what it's like when a political reporter actually knows those names and reads their work and uses it in covering politics. It's very powerful.
Take one last question. Right here up in front.
How would you advise a prospective student to decide between an MS full-time, part-time, or MA, especially if they may have majored in journalism as an undergrad and then didn't work as a journalist? It seems like as a part-time MS student, you have a little bit longer of a time to be considered a student, and you might be able to take graduate courses at Columbia. So that's I'm now kind of persuaded to maybe even think about doing that. Can you give any advice on that?
On choosing between the MS part-time program and the MA program.
Right. I mean, are there still students that continue on to an MA after they do an MS?
Yeah, there are. I mean, part of it is, you know, do you want to be a full-time university student setting aside your life, moving to the neighborhood, and being part of a student body for a year, or do you want to keep your day job and be kind of doing this on a commuter basis? That's a sort of fundamental experiential question that I think determines a lot of these choices for people, right?
Oh, definitely. And, the MS program, as I said, is the part-time program is very much the same as the full-time program in that you have a set of required courses that you need to take. Students generally do that part-time program, with at least for 4 semesters, that involves just one class. And that's quite a lot to handle. And those courses are, things that you can't get anywhere else. And, the students stay pretty dedicated to them. They occasionally will audit another class in this school and very, very occasionally outside. But they generally tend to be immersed fully in our curriculum so that taking a class in economics or, in political science doesn't tend to usually be the case.
And another test, I mean, I'm being a little jocular here, but not too much, to give we have an option where you can apply and say, essentially, you guys decide whether you think I'm better for MS or MA, and we will. Okay, so if I say it's 11 o'clock, ding ding, somebody just set off a bomb in an elementary school in Queens. Nobody was hurt because it's Saturday, but it just exploded. There's a lot of damage. I need you to go there, and I need you to file a story by 6. A text version, maybe some video, maybe a photo. If you feel like, no problem, I'm there, then MA, then MS might be somewhat replicative for you. If you hear that and think, oh shit, how am I going to do that? Then maybe MS is better. I don't know if you all buy that that's a decent test, but that's a kind of self-test you can give yourself.
The only thing I would add to that is having taught RW1 now for a couple of years and having worked with a lot of young journalists, there are things that people often think that they know how to do, that when they actually get challenged in this environment, they realize, that rule that assistant city editor in Salina, Kansas told me about never starting a sentence with the word but, that was actually a really stupid rule. And this school kind of enables you to sort of rise above some of those really little either cultural or grammatical rules that every newsroom inflicts upon its young journalists, as if it's like it came down from Mount Sinai and you can never do this any other way. And I mean, we insist that your stories be true, that they be thoughtful, that they be deeply reported, that you really do your interview news in a fair and transparent way. But we also try to be somewhat expansive in terms of, you know, understanding that there are a lot of different media, there's a lot of different audiences, and once you get those kind of basic tenets of journalism down, we will help you kind of think through what's the best way to tell a story. And the rigid conventions that many news organizations love to adhere to for a long time, we're now finding that they're actually not as useful as we all thought.
And I think the shortcuts you sometimes get taught that aren't really helpful. And I see my students who perhaps had some broadcast experience, and it's I think important for them to learn how to go a little deeper and not just constantly be relying on those shortcuts to make their reporting more significant, meaningful.
And also a lot of newsroom experience, you're this atomized person. You are an individual going out to cover a story, and you come back and you file it, and it gets edited. And I usually have my group, my students working in small groups of 2 to 4 people, and you will, you know, we talk a lot about what you'll be taught by people like us. You will learn a lot from your fellow students here. It's the range of ability and understanding is really deep, and we want to really encourage that.
And thank you, Bill. That gives me the perfect segue into our student panel. So I'd like to thank Bill, Elena, Betsy, and Nick very, very much. And I would like to I also would like those of you who are here and those of you who are with us on the live stream to know that we know that you have lots more questions about the programs, about the curriculum. We're very happy to talk about those with you at the end of this session. And for those of you on the live stream, you can send in your questions via the chat and we'll get them answered for you, or you can email us in the admissions office at admissions.jrn.columbia.edu. So I would like to introduce my colleague Brett Sion, who is going to introduce our student panel.
Thanks very much, Christine. And now I promise you this will be the most entertaining part of the show. I'll have our students, I know, you guys were great, but this will be the interactive part of the show, I promise you. So I'll have our students come up now, and we'll be able to hear from them and get their student experiences, and again, you guys will be able to ask questions of them here in the audience and online. So. Thanks. What I first would like to do is just have them introduce themselves, the program that they are currently enrolled in, where they're from, and if they have any experience or anything that they would like to share, this could be the time that they're able to do that. So if you guys could just introduce yourselves, where you're from, and your program.
Sure. Hi, my name is Crystal Groh. I am a Master of Arts student in the Arts and Culture concentration. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. In terms of journalism experience, I did my undergrad in journalism. Worked in community newspapers for about 4 years until I felt like if I had to cover another town hall meeting or a middle school dance, I was going to lose my mind. Moved to Providence and have spent the last 3 years as a program manager at an arts nonprofit. Decided that I needed a way to put those things together, my sort of passion and dedication for journalism and my love for and experience with the arts. Decided to take a stab at the MA program, and here I am.
Hello, I am Christine Cho, and I'm a student in the MS program. I'm from Long Island, New York, and I graduated from Syracuse University in 2007, and then right after that I started working as a reporter for the Orlando Sentinel newspaper in Florida, and I was there for about 4 years until about this time last year, and I came to New York and I started working for a British newspaper, the Daily Mail, and then I decided to come here.
Hi everyone, my name is Camilo Vargas. I am an MS concentrator in the newspaper concentration. I'm from Colombia, South America, the country, not the university, and I get that joke a lot, and it's kind of old already, but so I have a background in political science and international relations. I did my BA and my MA in political science and international relations in the University of the Andes in Bogota, Colombia. Then I started an academic career, and I thought that I was headed for a PhD when all of a sudden I remembered that when I was 16 years old, I dreamed about coming to this university. And I talked to several alums that today run some of Colombia's best news projects and independent news projects. They all went to this university, and they said that it was very viable for me to do it. So I applied and got in, and now I'm, well, pretty much living the dream. Although sometimes it feels like the nightmare
That's true.
in terms of the amount of work that we have. But it's been an amazing experience, and I'm here to, you know, share the experience with you.
Yeah, could you each talk for a minute or so just about what your experience has been like so far?
Well, so far, now that it's December, the deadlines are piling up, and the weight of the thesis paper for the MA program is really starting to become an ever-present phenomenon. It's an intensive project, but the coursework thus far really makes me feel like I'm prepared to handle it in a way that I would never have been before. The amount of reading that we have to do in the MA program is intensive, but a lot of times it feels like I'm kind of getting the most important parts of what you would get as in the arts and culture program at art school, just without the studio practice. So we're reading a lot of art theory. We're reading a lot about different kinds of artworks. We take trips to museums, not just to look at art, but to think about the way that curation affects the way that shows are received and reviewed. And we're really handling this from both a journalistic perspective, but looking at it from a very practical and an interesting perspective. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy the most about the program is the access to the faculty. Some of the deans had mentioned it before, but we really have an opportunity to learn from some of the most well-recognized and well-respected names in the business. You know, our major piece for the semester in the arts and culture program is a long-form profile of an MFA student at the art school. So in preparation for writing our profile, the profile editor of The New Yorker did a full session in class with us to speak with us specifically about what makes a good profile, what we should be looking for, and how we can really execute this in a way that's interesting and that's fair. So that's been really helpful, and I'm becoming a better writer through this program. I knew a lot about the arts before I got here, but I wouldn't have known how to speak about it or write about it in a way that was captivating and intelligent before. So that's been one of the biggest benefits that I've had so far in the program.
I've been having a tremendously amazing experience. I feel like I've learned so much in just the short amount of time we've been here so far. I mean, we get to do so many different things. Camille and I were talking about it before, how I learned how to write a radio script, which before, I mean, like 3 or 4 months ago, I have no idea where to even begin. And now I can not only write a radio script, but I can produce radio projects, multimedia slideshows. And then I also feel like I've become a much stronger writer and reporter because at least with Camilla and I are in the same RW1 class, our reporting class, and just the opportunity that you have to be with these professors who work at your level. If you don't have much experience, they're going to work at your pace, but if you do have more experience, they're going to really push you to be just the best reporter and the best writer you can be. And you know, we've been really lucky. We have a great reporting professor who's just fun, and the camaraderie of having the group together. Our whole class is very, very close. So it's been, for me, just the opportunity to learn so much. And like Crystal was saying about just the amount of people you meet. I mean, we've had New York Times reporters and editors come to our class and talk to us about their specialties. We've been to the New York Times building and got a tour of it. I mean, you just have access to so much, so many different things, and then also so many skills that you're learning along the way. So it's just incredible.
Okay, so in RW1, reporting and writing, it's like the basic skills class of the semester, of the first semester, and for those of us who didn't really have any journalistic experiences, it's pretty much like the eating your vegetables. That's where you learn to cover pretty much everything. Now I'm interested in international politics, and for my RW1 I had to cover the East Harlem beat in New York. So it's local news, like the one thing that I really did not want to do journalistically. And it is where I have learned the most, definitely. Because when you're covering politics, of course, you expect the politicos to spin everything, and you mistrust them a lot. But when an old lady, off the street tells you like, oh, they're evicting me from my home, and it's horrible and it's terrible, and you go home and you're like, yeah, I'm going to write this story. Wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And then you start piecing everything together, and you discover that everything has to be verified. Because the people, everyone here in New York, everyone in the world will just tell you the most amazing, outlandish things. And so at the beginning of every RW1, we try and do the morning prayer. The morning prayer. Mere assertion is not fact, and not all facts are good evidence. And that is the one thing that, it's stuck in my head right now, and that, I feel like I'm a better, that is the principle that is with me now. And that is one of the biggest things I learned in RW1. Now, to go really down ladder, as we say with our professor in RW1, giving you the details. My semester here, I covered the Clinton Global Initiative. I heard President Obama. I saw him, and I took notes to his speech, and it was, I was taking practice notes because I couldn't really write a story, because if I had talked to the president, the only thing that I could have thought about asking him was like, well, Mr. President, what do you think about housing in East Harlem? Because during the entire semester, I lived, breathed, and ate everything, about East Harlem. Right now, in a typical week, you will have to write and rewrite several stories for several classes. I'm taking the business and journalism class. Aside from RW1, I've also done audio storytelling, and then in the second semester, we're going to go, or at least I'm going to go from print to taking several skills in broadcast. So you get as much as you want from the program. You work a lot. It's very intensive. But you do learn a lot, and the change is very dramatic and very wonderful to see.
Now, for those of you sitting in the audience, we understand that there are some of you here that have already applied for admission for next year, who might be here just to get some more information for the future, or just trying to decide where it is you want to go in your lives and in your career. So we don't have to go down the line or anything, but what would you say is the reason that you guys chose to come to the J School and give us a year of your life, essentially? Go ahead. Anybody can take that one.
Well, I just thought, well, I, like Camila, always wanted to come to Columbia just since I was very young. I really always dreamed of being here, so this is a dream come true. But also, I was thinking long term, where 10, 15 years from now is it going to be, how important is it going to be to have a master's degree with the way things are changing, especially with the economy now. I feel like a lot of people are going to get their master's degrees, so I didn't want to be behind later on in life, wishing I had done something now. And I also felt like, as far as journalism is concerned, with my experience, I thought, you know, when I was a reporter at the Sentinel, we often were just handed a camera, go take photos, be a photographer today for this story, go and shoot some video. And I didn't really know what I was doing. It was just, I was just guessing. And there is a certain level of skill you need to have in order to do those things well. And I felt like having a good foundation of training, of real training of how do you properly take a picture, what makes a good news photo, how do you go then and produce video, and like what works with that, and then how do you put all that together online, and how do you do everything that's now necessary for you to do as a journalist. So I felt like if I wasn't here, I just wouldn't have those kinds of skills. And I felt like if you're going to go and get a master's degree and going into journalism, why not come to Columbia University? I mean, it's a Ivy League school. You can't beat it. So I felt like that's what motivated me.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I guess I had sort of said earlier, I was kind of at a crossroads either way in my career. And I knew that to be able to practice journalism the way that I wanted to, I needed more. I needed more knowledge, I needed more training, I needed more access. And this was the best time and the best way to really pursue it. The fact that this is a one-year program was also really, really attractive to me. First of all, I didn't have the money to spend 2 years in grad school, and I just didn't feel like I could take that much time, especially in journalism where the field just changes so rapidly all the time. I really feel like as journalists, we can't afford to spend 2 years in school learning how to be reporters when we need to be out there doing it. So it does feel very intense. The pace now, even though we're only 3 months in, it's very demanding and it's very intensive, but I think it needs to be this way because that's the nature of the field. And that's a really big part of what made sense to me in coming to Columbia, because I knew I needed the knowledge, but I knew I had limited time to get it done. So I'm definitely feeling that now, you know, that there was a crossroads I was at to kind of combine what I was doing in a way that made sense and in a time frame that was also quote unquote affordable. You know, nothing is really affordable, but it's a lot cheaper than doing this for 2 years. So.
Great, thanks. Camila, did you want to comment?
Well, I could go on and on about, you know, this being my personal live stream, whatever. But I think you're very interested in the jobs prospect of it all. And so once again, I'm just going to state the facts. Last week I had an internship interview for the Miami Herald. On Monday I will have an interview to go do, because I applied to the Sciences Po program to do a second year in Paris, learning more digital and doing reporting in French. I'm also applying to the Thomson Reuters internships, and then Univision, and the school sets it all up for you, and they prepare you for all these things. And I made the finalist lists. I made the final list for the Miami Herald because I have the profile that they're looking for. Just as a small advice, if you have the time to take language courses, those are really important. Those are very, very important, and employers are really looking for those now. I speak French, English, my native Spanish, and some German, and that is really attractive to everyone. So in this competitive world, you really have to, hone in a big skill set. And the university does put you in contact with the best employers out there.
Congratulations on everything that's going on for. That's great. Like I said, I want to make this interactive for the rest of the time that we have. So this is your chance. If you want to hear and ask questions of our current students, what their experience is like so far, what their classes are like, the things that they're doing, this is your chance. So, it's okay. Good. We have some good journalists here already. Hand went right up. Fantastic. So, again, we have a microphone that we can bring around to you. So, fire away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dana Macbeth. And my question is kind of prior to you actually being here at Columbia, but what did you do to prepare yourself to even apply to Columbia, especially if you don't have a background in journalism?
Well, I had been out of journalism for 3 or 4 years when I decided to apply. So it was difficult for me to kind of dig up my old clips, and was looking through the stacks of papers that I had, thinking wow, I don't know that Columbia is going to care about this bakery fire that I covered, 4 years ago. But I think pulling the clips together was one part of it, but the admissions essays, I think, are the most important. So I think really spending time with the application essays is the most crucial part of it, regardless of the kind of background experience you have. I think Columbia wants to see where you are right now and why this makes sense for you now more than sort of what your background dictates where you might be. So, it took me a while to dig through my clips and to find 3 decent pieces that I could send in, but I spent a good amount of time really crafting my admissions essays, because I think that's where you really get to speak your piece about why this makes sense for you right now and why this is the place you need to become a better journalist.
Anybody else want to comment?
Well, I did do a short journalism internship in an independent news website in Columbia, just so that I could have a couple of clips to show, and I did them in political corruption and victims of war violence in Colombia, and so I thought that was pretty sexy on my application. The admissions test is really important as well. You really do have to learn how to write quickly, or at least train yourself a little to write very quickly for the test. And the admission essays, you have to convey that you really, really want it. And you have to turn your entire life story in a story about a journalist who's about to start a career. So
I think it's also important with the essays to try to get an idea of right now, if you could do a long form story, what is that going to be? What is your idea? I think trying to say
what you do with your time here, like what you hope to accomplish. I think that helps being able to add that into your essays. And I think MA applicants don't have to take the writing test, but I think there's an extra essay. So just prepare for that.
Another question?
This question is for Crystal because I'm interested in the arts. What? Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
How many students in your program came in that you've met and interacted with that were really solely focused on the arts? I mean, you mentioned you hadn't been in journalism or writing for the paper for a couple years. I have a background in photography and documentary and video, but I also love to write. So just how many of the students came in with pretty much only an artistic background, but were good writers and interested in
By
journalism?
like an artistic background, do you mean like practicing artists, or do you mean people that have just been working in the arts?
Working in the arts, practicing artists. I mean, just any, more specifically, creating visual art, or photojournalists, but not writing necessarily as much, that came into the program.
I'm actually glad that you asked that because I'm in a really similar spot. I was running a photo program in Providence, and I feel like it's actually kind of rare for there to be practicing artists or people that are more kind of physically involved in the art world in the program. That being said, the diversity of experience is part of what makes the program so great. We've had people that were writing for major arts and culture publications before they came to Columbia. We've had people who were publishing books before they came here. But I think that the kind of ground level experience that someone like you or I may bring to the program has actually been super useful in class discussions where maybe I don't know a ton about art theory, but I've worked with a lot of artists and have like watched that process. So I have that perspective to bring where other people have another perspective to bring, and I think one of the deans had mentioned earlier that there's this kind of collective knowledge where everybody's sort of filling in the gaps. So because I came with this pretty extensive background in photography, every time like the topic turns to photography in any of the classes, it's like, well, what do you have to say? Well, like, what does Crystal think about that? You know, which is good. It is also intimidating because I don't know everything. But we have so many good sources to pull from between the student body and even in having access to other schools. One of the greatest things that I'm finding is being able to take classes outside of Columbia. I'm taking art history courses and I'm taking, you know, theory and philosophy classes, and that's helped me kind of even off my experience a little bit. I will tell you that I do miss making art. That's really hard. You know, I'm a musician too, and that's one of the things that I miss. But being able to funnel that energy into being a better writer, which is the thing that I haven't been doing in the past few years, has been really, really, really helpful and makes me feel like I'm getting a more kind of complete perspective on pursuing like arts as an artist, like as a creative person and as a writer.
Great. Go ahead, right here. Go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you for sharing. My name is Marcia Fingal, and I'm really excited about the things I've been hearing this morning about the MA program and the MS program. I'd like to know what this costs. Will we be talking about that at some point during this session?
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more about that coming up.
Okay, because that's something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Juhi, and I went to the University of Florida to study broadcast journalism, and go Gators, just throwing that in there. And
half of our RW1 is from Florida.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Half of our RW1 class is from
Great,
Florida.
great. Hopefully, if I get in here, I'll fit right in. So I'm a little bit confused between applying for the MS and the MA because I studied broadcast journalism, and it's been 4 years since I graduated, and I have been, I studied documentary filmmaking for a year after that, and I, was working with film festivals and also as a broadcast journalist for an indie TV station, and so I've been working and keeping myself involved. But at the same time, I went to a smaller info session last year for the J School, and whoever was leading it was kind of still telling me, I still think that the MS program might be better for you, but I still personally felt, I feel like it would be more sort of like a repetitive thing if I went to the MS program, even though I know that there would be a lot for me to learn. And so I was just wondering, between that, like what the differences are, and kind of if there's any advice that you have.
Well, like I said before, I actually was like you, have worked, and I worked for several years as a reporter, and I think the way it seems when you're applying, I was a little hesitant myself, thinking that maybe the writing reporting class RW1 would have been sort of silly and useless, but like I said before, at least in my case, my professor really tailored her instructions to me personally, and it was different with someone who didn't have any experience. I mean, she really was very aggressive of pushing me to write better. The way I report compared to the way that I did before is just night and day. And I also felt like, I can't speak to the MA program because I'm not in it, but I felt like with the MS program, just the amount of skills you get to learn. In August, it is just, it is really a boot camp, but it's an amazing time because you are learning everything so fast, so quickly, and you're really taking it all in, and then you get to apply it to your actual classes throughout the year. So I felt like having those skill sets, especially in August, was super useful. And again, I thought it was interesting to be able to still take other kinds of classes, but also work on my writing and reporting. So it's really what you want to do. If you're really excited, let's say, about the arts and that's what you're really passionate about, or politics or something, then I think that's probably a great direction. But if you really want to work on being a better reporter and writer and just get a boatload of different skills while you're at it, I mean, it's just, to me, I just feel like there's no other kind of opportunity where you can really learn how to use all these different programs and use it really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of the difference too. Like, if you feel like you really have a handle on the skills, and there's a specific coverage area you want to apply them to, then maybe the MA program makes sense. You know, if you feel like you have a solid background in, you know, in broadcast, but you're becoming really interested in politics, you know, then the MA program is going to give you kind of more of the theoretical knowledge that you would need to use your skills and kind of pull it all together in this way. So, I mean, I had struggled too in thinking, like, I've been out of journalism for a good 4 years. I could probably use a brush up on some of this stuff, but did begin to feel like maybe I didn't want to work a beat. Like, I wanted to write about an area. Like, I wanted to really specialize in this one thing and learn how to do it well, because I mean, I knew how to write. I felt like I could do that. But I mean, it's really all where you feel like you fall at this moment and where you want to direct like this very intense year of your life, you know, and where you feel like you might be getting the most.
Yeah, I would say experience level may dictate some of that, because if you have a number of years of experience behind you, the MA could be appropriate, especially if you want to focus on one of those subject areas. But if you don't have all of that experience, or you're still looking for that foundation and to gain the basic skills of what it is to be a journalist and how to do that job, period, then, you know, the MS may be more appropriate. I can tell you, though, if you've done an undergraduate degree in journalism or something related, the feeling that it might be repetitive or anything that you've already done, don't worry about that. It will take you to another level that you had not experienced before. I'll guarantee you that.
Mm-hmm.
We have time for one more, maybe. If we can maybe get one over here in the stripe, we'll go to that side. We'll take one more. I will say that the students have volunteered to stay after. If anybody wants a quick tour of the building, I'm going through some of the floors just to see what the building's like. They volunteered to do that, so they will be able to answer some more questions for you as they're taking you around, and we'll do that as soon as the session is over this afternoon. So keep that in mind. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks guys for sharing your experience with us. My question, I guess, is kind of twofold. One is, do you feel that your career aspirations now are kind of have changed since you got here? And also, do you feel that being here is, the school is kind of concentrating on getting you to where you want to be career-wise after you leave, or how much of it is really just focusing on the academic portion of journalism?
Well, geez, I try not to think about what I'm going to do in 5 months when this is over, because it's really frightening. But I do feel like I have way more opportunities now than I would have if I hadn't been here. Columbia has kind of like thrown the doors open for me to a lot of avenues that I would have never had access to before I got here. I mean, when we have guest lecturers that are you know, faculty at Columbia writing and publishing books and publishing articles on a consistent basis in major publications, when we have career services people that have connections with a lot, not only just publications, but internships, and there are just so many outlets and avenues here for us. And I kind of walked into this thinking, not really sure where I want to end up. I just want to be a better writer. I want to be a journalist, and I want to be able to use what I know in an effective way, but actually not having any idea how I was going to get there. This program and the community at Columbia, I think, think has really helped me identify the places where I want to end up. You know, and it can be something as general as like, well, do you want to stay in New York? Sure. Okay, then here are some things that you should apply to in New York that make sense given your coverage area and what you're interested in doing. So I think career-wise, it is really helpful. I mean, this is a professional school, and the idea is to get us to a level where we can be successful in the world. And I feel like my career prospects are much more varied and interesting than they would have been if I had tried to do this on my own.
Well, once again, stating the facts. On my Miami Herald application, I think I wrote 3 or 4 drafts of the cover letter, and every single draft was edited by someone at Career Services. Actually, Elena Cabral, the professor who was talking at the earlier panel, she was really, hands-on with everything from telling me where my competitive advantages are, where it might be a good idea for me to apply, sort of like how to tailor my courses and my entire, the curriculum for the prospective employers, especially as an international student. You really have to, you have to work with international news organizations and really sort of like sell yourself, especially in the aspects where you're competitive. And yes, the school does go out of its way to show results in terms of placing its students in, top news organizations. So once again, just the facts.
Yeah, and I felt like since I was a reporter, coming here, actually, I've changed a little bit in the sense that I still love reporting, but I really have grown into falling in love with working on websites. And my RW1 professor, who I just love, she has really just let me just run our class website for most of the semester, and I've really been able to just pick up a lot of things. So that's more along the lines of what I like to do. And I do think, as these guys have mentioned, there's the career services, and then there's all the faculty that you have available to you that are just willing to help you with whatever, and also having those contacts. And we also get, if you want to, have a mentor in the field who is a past alum and who would be able to help you too. So that's another contact you'd be able to have. So there's definitely, I think the reach of the amount of people that, when our class went to the New York Times, like most of the people that talked to us were from Columbia, and in fact my professor was their professor at the time. So I just, being able to have all those contacts, I think, are super useful.
Great. Thank you to each of you. And that's actually a good segue, because next we want to transition into some of the nuts and bolts, admissions, financial aid, career service information to finish up. So thank you 3 for taking time out of your reporting schedules today.
And just if any of the MA, like prospective MA people want to find me for the tours afterwards, I can help you all kind of chart that course too. I know there's probably fewer MA students than maybe in the MS.
We're going to write our emails, our Columbia emails for all of you if you want to shoot us questions, very specific down letter questions. We'll be able to answer them there.
Great, thanks. Just want to give you some information now about the admissions process, where we are at this time of year. Like I said earlier, some of you may still be considering whether you want to apply, may have applied already, may be in the process of doing that somewhere. So the application certainly is available now, and we do not have a paper application. Everything is on our website. Should be easy to find, hopefully, through the admissions link on the J-School website. The deadlines are coming up. So this was, as you may have found out, the final information session prior to our application deadlines. If you are interested in PhD, Master of Science, the deadline for the application submission is December 17th. For the Master of Arts or the dual degree with computer science, that will be January 15th. If anybody is interested in that dual degree program with computer science, you would actually apply through the engineering school. That is a different application, but all of the other programs is the single J-School application that we have on our website. We do have a link to that engineering school application on our website, but it will lead you there. So the application's there, it's available, and the deadlines are coming up, but you still have time. If you saw in your packet there was this card that will give you the checklist of everything else that you need to submit with the application. We do have a number of things, of course, and we do take each of those into consideration when we review the applications. But this will be a nice little reference tool for you so you know exactly what you need to submit. And it'll again give you the dates, December 17th or January 15th, depending on the program, with each of the things that you need to submit. There are, of course, transcripts, a number of essays, a resume, writing samples, and most of those can be uploaded with the application directly. Now, we understand some of those things, like the recommendations that your recommenders have to send, transcripts may come in a little bit later, and that's okay. But everything that you can submit with the application, most of which can be done uploading it with the submission. If you have already applied or if you've gone to the application, there's a section for instructions. Each section as you go through it will give you some information, but there's a whole link that you can click on that will give you instructions specifically for each of the applications. Again, just to reiterate that for you, if you go back to our website under the admissions link, for those of you here in the room, you can click on that, and then there's the apply button. So that will give you the link directly to the application and then some program information for each of those. So that's how you can get there pretty easily. One of the things that causes some consternation with some students would be the writing test that you've heard mentioned. Once you submit the application, we will get information to you about that writing test. There's really nothing you can do at this point. We will be in touch with you after we get your application and get you information about the writing test. It's only for the Master of Science students. If you are in the New York area, you live here, we do offer that test here weekends in January at the J School. If you are not local to New York here, but we have some alumni proctors in your area, we will match you up with a proctor and you can take the exam with them, and then they'll send it back to us on your behalf. If you are somewhere we do not have a proctor near your area, we'll give you instructions on how to find a proctor. It's not a problem. We don't have much of a problem with students not being able to find one, so we'll give you instructions on how to do that. But you do not have to come here, but if you're local, we do offer them here, but we'll match you up or give you instructions on how to find a proctor in your area. There's nothing that you need to study for that writing test. You know, it's more of an open-ended question. It's not like SAT, GRE. There's no true, fall, right, wrong answers. It just gives us a chance, again, to gauge your writing abilities, to just kind of gauge how we think you may react as a journalist, and if you are a good storyteller, can analyze situations. So make sure you may, be in tune with some local worldly events, something that any good journalist would need to know anyway. So it's nothing that you have to prepare much for. But we'll get that information to you usually by the middle of December, and then, as long as you have that done by February, you'll be okay. Kind of the timeline then, once we have all of your submitted materials and that writing test, the admissions committee will review that. We'll usually have final decisions back by the middle of March. Assuming you're admitted, we will have an open house here in April, and then you have until May 1st to accept our offer of admission. So that's kind of the timeline which you can think about between now and where everything would finish up by May 1st. We're just going to look for things as part of the admissions process. Writing ability, of course. Again, as some of the students mentioned in those essays that you provide, any interesting backgrounds you have, why you want to do this, career aspirations, goals, things that, why you want to come to this program, why you want to be a journalist. And And we'll look at each of those pieces on that checklist and gauge them. There's nothing that will weight more than something else. Oh, the writing test was worth half of the decision, and the essays are each worth 25% or anything like that. You know, we do a holistic review and take a look at who you are, what you've done, and why you want to do this, and see if you'll be a good fit for the type of program that we offer here as well. It's a pretty straightforward process, and we're always here. So if you have any problems, questions as you're going through the application, feel free to let us know. But like I said, just keep in mind those deadlines that are going to be coming up soon. The other application that you might want to take note of would be the scholarship application. So again, I'll ask our Associate Dean in Admissions and Financial Aid, Christine Souders, to come back up, and she can tell you a little bit about that process and get into a little bit of the finance behind everything.
Thank you, Brett. Okay, I'm here to talk about brass tacks, all the really serious and, troublesome things. Money, money, money. Graduate school is expensive. It's expensive, it's exciting, you want to do it, and you've got to figure out how to finance your graduate education. What we do here and what we advise people to think about is, first of all, your own personal funds, because most every student who is here at the journalism school is making some investment in their own education. So we're looking at personal funds, we're looking at scholarship funds, and it can be journalism school scholarships, but it can also be outside third-party scholarships. We encourage everybody to look for money everywhere they can. And I'm going to talk a little bit separately about the international students, because there is some outside U.S. government funding and also foreign government funding for graduate study in the United States. The third way people finance their education here at Columbia for people who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents of the United States, the third way is federal student loans. Many of you know about those already, having taken them in undergraduate school. It's the same deal. You take the loans, you pay them back over a period of time. But the best way to start thinking about your education at Columbia is to look at your finances. We encourage everybody to look very, very realistically at their personal funds, and then to think about how they're going to do this. And we want you to do that starting now, because once you roll into the application process, the admission process, by that May 1st deadline, when we ask you to let us know what your decision is, you should know how you're going to fund your education. The part-time students start in May. The full-time MS students start at the beginning of August. The MA students and the doctoral students start either at the end of August or in the first week of September. So by May 1st, it's important that you either have a very good idea or that you really know how you're planning to fund your education. There is lots of information on our website to help you with this. We're very, very happy to talk with you individually about how to think about this, how to think about budgeting. We recognize that for the people who are going to be coming full-time, that you are going most likely to be foregoing job income for a year. That's something that you have to plan for. For the part-time students, we realize that you are perhaps working part-time. Many of the part-time students are working full-time. So you need to just take a look at all of that and figure out what is going to be best for you. We do have very generous scholarship funding here at the journalism school. We would love it if it were more generous. And we're always looking for additional sources of funding for our students. This year, the average award for the MS students is about $10,000. The average award for the MA students, this is scholarship awards, and this does not include the federal student loan awards. The average award for the MA students is about $31,000. The part-time students are also eligible to apply for scholarship funding. That is journalism school scholarship funding. And the awards are prorated based on the number of credits that the part-time students take, that the individual students take. International students, where can you find funding? Because very frequently we know that the cost of education in the United States and at Columbia can be very different from the cost of education outside of the country. I would encourage you, first of all, to look at Fulbright funding. This is a U.S. federal government funded program for students coming from other countries to the United States. There are what we call Education USA offices in most capital cities in most countries. I encourage you to contact those offices to find out about the Fulbright funding. Many countries also have special funding for students doing graduate work outside of their country. So there are many countries in South America that offer this kind of funding. In Germany, you can go to the DAAD offices. There is European Union funding. There is Scandinavian government funding. There are a number of the Middle Eastern countries that also have specialized funding for students coming to the U.S. We encourage you to look at all of those opportunities. We have a very big list of third-party funders on our website also. We keep track of the deadlines because some of those application deadlines come up while during the academic year. So while you're a student here, you'll be getting emails from us, you'll be getting contacts from us on Facebook and Twitter reminding you of deadlines for things like the Overseas Press Association Award, like the New York Newswomen's Association Awards. We remind you constantly of these because our students do very well in these competitions. So we want you to participate, and because we know that even a $2,000 award from a third-party funder is very valuable. That will cover that'll cover practically a semester of housing for you if you're coming into New York to live. We know that even the smallest awards, say $700, that'll practically cover the cost of the Metro card for most of the year. So you can see we think about the budget